Hello chess friends and welcome to your out of chess channel and welcome to the most important game so far of the Tata Steel Masters in 2023. We have here the derby of the round 4, Anish Giri versus Magnus Carlsen, and Anish and Magnus combined with Fabiano Caruana and Nodirbek Abdusattorov were the only players who won at least one game out of the first 3 rounds. So who wins now this game has great chances to take the lead, but I think who wins now this game has really a psychological advantage. Then in the continuation of this chess event, then I think he could separate himself from the competition and could really be the favorite to win the Tata Steel in 2023. So as I said, in my opinion, so far the most important game so in this beautiful chess event. So let's see now what happened. The game ended a couple of minutes ago. It was really a beautiful chess game. So here Anish played with the white pieces and opened with the move d4. Magnus' response was knight to f6, c4, and after move e6 we have now the anti-Nimzo or counter-Nimzo Indian again approach here by white. Knight to f3, not allowing to get pinned after potential knight to c3, of course, followed with bishop to b4 would probably be black's continuation. So that's why here Magnus goes into a different line. He goes now into the so-called Queen's Indian defense. Is of course waiting again. I'll explain a little bit chess theory here. If white now plays knight to c3, then of course white will get pinned with bishop to b4. So it's similar like in the Nimzo Indian defense, and of course bishop to b7, knight to e4 would have a great control around the e4 square. So that's why many times white is playing the normal idea. G3 is competing with the light square bishop here on with the move bishop to g2, and now comes the very popular line of the Queen's Indian defense, bishop to a6, of course hitting the pawn now on c4. And okay, basically you have, I think, two good choices here for white. You can play the move b3 or queen to c2. Both of these lines have different ideas. It's not the same if you play queen to c2 or b3. The move b3 is fixing the structure but weakens a little bit your dark squares. If you play, of course, b3, then you are vulnerable a little bit to dark squares. But the most important thing is that your queen is staying on the d file and you have control of the d file, which is very important. If you play now like Anish did with the move queen to c2, if you're protecting the pawn on the c4 like this, then of course you're not so vulnerable on dark squares anymore, but you have problems a little bit here on the d file. So you see now why it's a huge difference, because Magnus retreats now to b7. Okay, you may think this is wrong because you lost the tempo, but actually this is the way to go, because now after bishop to g2 that white needs to play, Magnus breaks now in the center with the move c5 immediately, and actually d takes c5, and after b takes c5 black could have really a dominant position in the center of the board, would then push the pawn on d5 and would connect the pawn on c5 with the pawn on d5 and would have really a solid structure, would have really a mobile pawn structure that could cause you many strategic problems and in the continuation of the game, because if you get the pawn to d5, then these two pawns are controlling 4 very important squares on your side of the board. I'm not saying this is something spectacular, but as I said, this is the way that black wants to go into the game. He wants to build sort of a restriction idea with his pawns in the center of the board. So that's why after move c5, Anish goes into this most beautiful line here with the move d5. It's a gambit line, and that's what I really liked so far about this game. Anish goes immediately aggressive into the game, and that's, I think, the new Anish that we really missed sometimes previously. Anish plays really aggressive chess in this chess event. He also dominated already in many games now so far, but I think he missed these tactical ideas. Now we see really the beautiful tactical Anish he is challenging now here. Magnus already into a wild tactical battle with the move d5. So here after move e takes d5, we have c takes d5, and okay, black can of course take out now the pawn with the bishop or with the knight. If you take with the bishop, then I think white gets an extra tempo. Knight to c3 is going to happen, you have to retreat, and now the main goal would be kingside castling, rook to d1, e4, and similar stuff. Okay, black has this extra pawn on the d file, but it's really hard to make something with this pawn. The d file will be occupied, the queen is lined up on the d file. If you play d6, then you have sort of a backward pawn but also weak score in d5. So you have certain strategic problems then in the continuation of the game, although you're up a pawn. So that's why after move c takes d5, the main line is the move knight to d5. But you see, when you take out the pawn, you have broken a small rule in chess with chess that you should not play with the same piece twice in the opening. Of course, you have to take the pawn now, but you see you're lacking in development. Still, you need to play with the bishop, and still you need another move in order to secure the king by castling. So that's why after move kingside castling, bishop to e7, Magnus is preparing now finally to securing the king by castling. But now after move rook to d1, here you see the d file is open. There are many pieces that are lined up on the d file. So from this point on, white has at least some kind of an attacking opportunity. White has at least an attacking plan. So if you castle now immediately, then the problem is now you get queen to e4. So it's not easy for black to secure the king. Queen to e4, and there's not a good way anymore to protect the knight. Probably the game would end with the tactical sequence like rook takes d5, bishop to d5, and queen to d5, and similar stuff. So that's why after move rook to d1, here knight to c6 was played by Magnus, which is a good choice, because after rook to d5 you get knight to b4, and you get the fork and you lose decisive material. So of course Anish is not falling for this. He goes again with the correct line, queen to f5, hitting now the knight twice with the rook, and of course also with the queen. So knight to f6 was played by Magnus. We have now the move e4, and you see now, as I said, black is up a pawn but has problems what to do with the d pawn. You can play d6, then you have a backward pawn and also a weak square on d5, and as I said, d5 is never an opportunity because we'll simply recapture it. So now here Magnus goes with the move d6, and here he made, I think, already a tiny little inaccurate move when it comes to opening preparation. I think here g6 should be more aggressive here, should at least cause white some tactical damage, but because white needs now to react, white needs to make something at least with this queen to f4. Now we can hit the queen further. After queen to h6, you can play queen to bishop to f8, at least hitting the bishop again, maybe trying to reroute the bishop, and finally securing the king by castling. So this was maybe the way to go, but here Magnus played d6, which is still okay, nothing spectacular also for white, but it gives white here this tactical opportunity with this method, with the move e5. And you see now Anish played very great opening so far. He plays aggressively, he's down a pawn, but he has really now an attacking flow, and from this point on black is only on the defensive side. So Magnus goes with queen to d7, which is a good choice. I think he has to simplify the game now by trading off the queens. Anish goes into this line, queen to d7, knight to d7, and after e takes d6, we have now bishop to f6. The e file is now open, and Anish uses this moment and plays now rook to e1, and there are now two choices that you can play, of course, king to f8 or king to d8. If you play king to d8, then you get this one, bishop to g5. After bishop to g5, knight to g5, it's not so easy anymore to defend even your f7 pawn. The bishop will come into the game. This knight is coming, knight to c3, knight to b5, or knight to d5, knight to e7, knight to c7. So many, again, opportunities only for white. White is again just on the attacking side. So after move rook to e1, Magnus retreats to f8, knight to c3, played by Anish again with the same maneuvers, with the same tactical motifs. We have now knight to b4 by Magnus, which is a good choice. He's competing finally now with this with this light square bishop, pardon me, because this piece could be pinned. But now Anish goes immediately into a beautiful line, knight to e5. He opens up the position, and you have only one good choice here. You have to play now, like Magnus did, the move knight to e5. You see, here we can agree this pawn on d6 is weak. Magnus went into this line just in order to provoke one weakness, but Anish played here, as I said, really the perfect continuation. Knight to e5 leads now into many tactical complications, because if you play now bishop to g2, for instance, it's not working. Okay, you are threatening here the fork on c2, but actually it's simply too slow. Look at this, knight takes d7, king to g8, knight to f6 comes with check. After g takes f6, okay, after king to g2 you can play your fork, but now look at this, bishop to h6, it's winning even the game, because after move knight to e1, rook to e1, you get even checkmated. This is the wild stuff, because here the idea is to play knight to e4 or knight to d5, and then knight to f6 is even a checkmate. There's simply nothing that you can do. The rook is cornered here. You can maybe just try f5, but look at this, after knight to d5 you can try maybe f6, These are the only moves just in order to prolong the game. But now rook to e7 is going to happen, and there is simply no defense against knight to f6. If you play rook to f8 in order to defend this pawn on f6, then you get rook to g7, immediately a checkmate. So really wild stuff what Anish has prepared here against Magnus. So as I said, after move knight to e5, there is only one good move. Knight takes e5, and after bishop to b7, the rook gets attacked. So that's why Magnus goes now rook to d8, and he's hitting now the pawn on d6. So everything is pretty forced here, so nothing wrong also so far in black's position. Magnus has now the weird king on f8, but if he plays the game correctly, he could actually take out the pawn on d6, and okay, probably white should be slightly better, but this is actually defendable for black. Here Anish goes now rook to d1. At least for a while he's protecting his pawn on d6. We have now knight to c4. Magnus attacks now the pawn twice, and of course Anish advances now the pawn to d7. So here in the continuation, knight to c2. So far everything is good. Anish retreats, and now we have reached the first really critical moment of the game. Here Magnus plays a huge mistake, knight to d4. And the problem about this move, knight to d4, is actually that we can play always, or at least in the next couple of moves, we can play the motif b4, deflecting the pawn from the defense of the knight. So the knight is a little bit loose, although it's so far protected by the bishop on f6. But the main motif b4, c takes b4, is leading into tactical complications. If you don't react after b4, then always b takes c5 is an opportunity, and after b takes c5, the b file gets open. So these motifs, so it's not so easy immediately to see why this is a huge mistake, because it seems like a natural move. You're fixing your position around the square d4. You're really keeping your pieces compact here. But the better way to go is to actually go with knight to e5, attacking immediately this pawn on d7. And there are many things that white can do. Bishop to f4, for instance, is one sequence, but now you can go into this line. Rook to d7, maybe bishop to e5 you can play. Now rook takes b7, and probably white will take here the bishop on f6 after g takes f6. Black is up a pawn but has several structural weaknesses. This is a weak pawn. White has a better activity, will probably include the rook also here into the game, maybe on the 6th rank, attacking the pawn. So it would be a great continuation. Or maybe here after knight to e5, hitting the pawn, maybe bishop to e4 is also an opportunity to maybe attack the knight to c2. But again, we can play now finally knight to d4, and after this motif b4 we can actually take here knight takes d7. Maybe again with the same idea, knight to d5 is a white continuation. You could attack the bishop on f6, but now knight to e6 is retreating here and is keeping now the knight connected to the rook, because look at this, if you play now knight to f6, we don't have to even play g takes f6 in order to mess up our pawn structure. Now we can play knight to f6 and everything is compact. Okay, still probably white is better here, but at least you got out of this tactical sequence with somehow an extra pawn, and the knights are close to the king, so probably you could defend this position too. So the evaluation is about equal when it comes to computer statistics here. So as I said, knight to d8 would be then the good move here for black. So, but as I said, after move rook to b1, Magnus goes now with the move knight to b4, and Anish uses this moment, immediately plays down the move b4. If you play now c takes b4, then it leads into complication, because look at this, both of these knights are lined up on the b file, and many times now in the game this will be the main also tactical motif, so it's not working. So here, in order after move b4, the only way maybe to stop this aggressive attack by white is again to play knight to e5, but it's a different story now. It's not the same like in the previous continuation, because now Anish would probably take b takes c5, b takes c5. Now we improve the position of the king, because many times there is a certain motif, knight to f3, knight to f3, and then this diagonal gets open and the knight could be loose. So at least this king to g2 move is preventing the potential knight to f3 move. But now after rook to d7, f4, look at this. Okay, again, white is down a pawn, but look at this. This would be a beautiful attack. Bishop to a6. Again, we hit the knight. You have to play knight to b6. And as I said, finally the b file is open. Look at this. But now a4, a5. The rook is coming into the game for sure. This knight will come into the game maybe somewhere in the center of the board. So it's a devastating attack now against black. Again, the piece activity that white gained here is simply too much to handle for black. Knight to e4 is going to happen. So you see, again, black is facing several tactical problems, especially because of the fact that your rook on h8 hasn't played so far in the game. Really, really wild stuff. But as I said, at least with knight to e5, you are doing something. But all of this was possible because Magnus played the weird move knight to d4 in the first place. Really, really wild how chess can go wrong in one simple, tiny, little inaccurate move. So as I said, after knight to d4, Anish uses this moment b4, and Magnus makes now the huge mistake in the game. He takes out now the pawn on d7, and from this point on the game is a one-way ticket. Magnus played now two consecutive bad moves here. After rook to d7, Anish plays bishop to d5, and again the same motif appears. After c takes b5, rook to b4, pardon me, rook to b, after c takes b4, rook to b4 is going to happen. If you step back here maybe to d6, then we simply pick up two minor pieces for the rook, and everything is still compact. Everything is still glued together. We will eventually include also the bishop into the game, and this should be a completely winning game here for white. So after move bishop to d5, so that's why Magnus went to this line, knight to d6. He's trying somehow to regroup, but now comes this motif, b takes e5, b takes e5. Finally the b file is open, but so far rook to b8 of course can be always met with rook to d8 or bishop to d8 or knight to e8. It doesn't matter, but Anish plays now the correct move, I think, bishop to a3, hitting now the pawn on c5, and look at this, many pieces are lined up now on this long diagonal. The Darko bishop is becoming now the best minor piece on the board, and here you could maybe try this idea, knight to f3, bishop to f3, bishop to c3, but now rook to b8 of course is simply losing here for black. King to e7 now. This pawn is weak, will simply continue the pressure here, will also maybe kick away the rook from the defense of the knight. So this tactical sequence is simply not working. Also the rook is hanging, so you see nothing can be done here in order to defend this position. So see, bishop to a3, perfect move here by Anish Giri, really great attack. In the continuation, king to e7 was played by Magnus, and now Anish goes for this line, bishop to c5. Here Magnus plays now knight to e6, and there is now a brilliant move that Anish could have played. Unfortunately, maybe for the game he didn't play that, but look at this. He had this, I think it's even a immediately winning continuation. He has this line, knight to e4. This would be really brilliant, because after knight takes c5, you have to play knight to c5. The rook gets attacked. After rook to c7, rook to e1 is now a great choice, and after king to d8, you have this one, knight to a6, attacking the rook, and after rook to c8, you have to somehow compete on the 8th rank. Now there is a brilliant tactic, bishop to f7. Look at this, really wild stuff, because after knight to f7, rook to d1 is even a beautiful checkmate. The knight is controlling the c7 square, so this was the way to go. Maybe of course black doesn't have to react here, black doesn't have to take out the pawn, pardon me, the bishop on f7, but now white took a pawn. White will regroup, will play bishop to b3, has still a better activity. You didn't play so far with your rooks. The knight will be included somehow into the game with this extra pawn. I think this is a good choice here for white. But okay, after move knight to e6, Anish goes with bishop to b4, and maybe Magnus should have gone into this line now, bishop to c3, bishop takes c3, still of course a much better continuation, or here for white. Maybe this is defendable because your knights are close to the king, and finally you can include your rook into the game. Still, as I said, this should be much better for white, but maybe Magnus missed this line in order to somehow stay in the game. But Magnus played a risky choice, a5, and probably he thought, okay, white will take, then I will attack somehow his bishop, and of course the bishop has to retreat. I have a tension here around the square c3, so I'll chase the defender of the knight on c3, but actually this is not working because here Anish kept it calm. calculated everything, and we have to say it, Anish had still enough time on the clock, which was really also good. He didn't lose too much time on his tactical calculations, which is in classical time chess very, very important, not to lose time, because you still need like 20 minutes, maybe even 10-15 minutes in some other tactical sequences. So you just need maybe to find the winning tactical sequence, and you need sometimes really 10-15 minutes, maybe sometimes even 20 minutes. So Anish had still have of an hour on his clock, which was really great for him. He found the tactical solutions earlier already in his game. So now with this position, with still enough time on the clock, of course, this is now, I think, a completely winning game. Also, we have to also talk about psychology here. I think Magnus was devastating because he realized that something went wrong in this position. He didn't play here really his best game. So here, after move bishop to a5, he tried now a rook to c8, trying to attack this knight twice. Now Anish goes knight to a4, and it seems strange because it seems that maybe this could happen. Rook to a7, attacking both of these pieces, but now look at this, after bishop to a4, rook to a4, and now bishop to d6, king to d6 leads into complications, because after bishop to b7, the rook gets trapped, and the game should be over here for black. So this is not working. So after move knight to a4, Magnus goes now into the line knight to c4. He's trying again to simplify the game by trading off more pieces, but actually this should be again much better here for white. So after knight c4, again, Anish kept it calm, plays a beautiful rook c1, is of course pinning the knight to the rook. Now, there are many things they could do, but actually nothing is helping out here. Why? This is simply too much pressure. This is simply too aggressive play. The bishops are so dangerous here. Bishop to b4, the bishop is already here. The knight is always getting into the game. We have a passer. We have to also consider an option. Maybe if something goes wrong in this beautiful attack, if this game reaches somehow the endgame stage, still it's of course winning for white. White has an extra pawn, so it's really bad position for Magnus. This should be really winning for Anish. Bishop to e5, Magnus tried now bishop to b4 by Anish, and this is again beautiful, because look at this, what happens if you cover yourself with the bishop. This wasn't played in the game. Then bishop to c4 is even winning here, because if you try bishop to b4, you get this one, a rook takes d7, king to d7, and now bishop to e6. If you don't want to, of course, lose the rook immediately, you have to pick up now the bishop with the pawn, and then you get forked with the knight. So this is also one of the tactical solutions of the game. So that's why for bishop to b4, Magnus goes now king to f6. Here again a beautiful move by Anish, knight to c5. He is here cutting off the connection between the rook and the knight. Here in the continuation, Magnus goes now knight to c5. After rook to c4, Magnus tried to compete here on the c file, but now after bishop to a5, here in this particular position, Magnus Carlsen resigned. Really wild stuff. What's the problem here? If you step back, of course, with the rook, then bishop to b6 is going to happen, and there's simply no defense. There's no defense. The rook will be here loose after bishop to b6. You cannot move the knight, of course, because you lose the rook. So you see, both of these bishops are controlling these two squares that black maybe would use in order to keep the battery and in order to protect the knight on the c file. So great game by Anish Giri. He didn't play any inaccuracies, mistakes, or blunders in the game. So this was almost top engine play by Anish. He destroyed Magnus Carlsen here with a beautiful performance. Congratulations, because this is a different Anish that we watch now. He played really aggressively this opening. He played this beautiful ideas in the middle game stage. He played then with this passer. He found tactical solutions. Really, I'm not sure when I've seen such an aggressive Anish like this. And he played already his immortal in the tournament so far. We have covered it, of course. So brilliant Anish, and he is now in the lead of the Tata Steel Masters in 2023, and he has gained now many rating points because Magnus is of course the top rated player. So who knows? knows, maybe we'll see in the next couple of months Anish again in the 2800 rating club. But this was so far a brilliant performance, deserved win, we have to say. In every segment of the game, Anish outplayed Magnus, and this is the way to go. Great play again. Congratulations to Anish Giri. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Queen's Indian for sure. If you want to see some other games that we have covered so far in the chats, in this beautiful Tata Steel Chess event, please do so. Here's also the link of our beautiful spectacular gameplay by Anish. His Immortal, he already played in this tournament. Please also check it out. Here's the link. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.